So today we are talking about, is your website usable by AI? So previously we've talked about all the things around getting found by AI and trusted by AI, but today it's about, is it usable by AI? I need to make sure I'm on the right. Okay, cool. So I'm Lisa. I think lots of you have probably been on the talks previously. I've been making websites for over 20 years, and I run 18A. We're a web development agency just outside Bristol in the UK. And we're doing this series of talks. This is 3 or 4, what I'll talk about in a minute, about AI and how it's changing websites and what we need to do on websites. So 4 sessions across this whole series, the Agentic Web. The first one in May was why AI keeps choosing the same brands. And there's a replay available of that. So why, not just how to get mentioned in the first place, because I've done those talks previously, but why the same brands seem to get mentioned again and again. New technical SEO was in June, and what actually matters now. So technical SEO has kind of gone from being a nice to have to being really important again. And that's because AI relies on it so much. And today we're talking about the agentic web, and is your website usable by AI? I thought I would be really clever and give myself August off because it's a school holiday juggle. And so I'm glad the next one isn't until September, selling and building websites in 2027. So the selling aspect means it's a lot for agencies, but it's also about briefing a website, what websites need, just having things in mind. So for marketers as well, it's important. So I'm glad I skipped August, but I'm just remembering how hectic July is anyway, what with sports days and end of term presentations and everything. So it's already been hectic. So yeah, May was will AI trust you, and your continued due diligence. So I really find that really interesting, the continued due diligence thing. So do check out that replay if you haven't seen it. The new technical SEO, if you haven't, if you are in a position to do technical SEO, then do give that one a watch. And then today, can AI use you? So the whole point of this series really came up because I was talking to Tom one night, who's my husband. He's also the technical director of 18A. And I said something like, oh, I want to get Chatty, as in ChatGPT, to generate a picture of a really sad looking robot ticking the I'm not a robot box. And he can't, because he can't use the website because he is a robot. And if he's honest, he can't tick that box. And then it was that idea of that picture which spurred on this whole series. So we've got that's the photorealistic one. Chatty has got good images lately, and then that's the cutesy comic book version. So because you're all familiar with that, you're all familiar with I'm not a robot, and you tick the box to confirm you're a real person, and it lets you go on your way. And for 20 years, we've built the web to try and keep most robots out. Obviously, we've always wanted Googlebot and other search engines to crawl it, but on the whole, robots were maybe stealing your data or scraping stuff or just using up resources that you didn't need them to be using up. But now we need to let some robots back in, and those are the ones that are going to be working on behalf of your customers. And lots of websites don't know how to tell the difference between the good robots and the bad robots, but also just how to make sure that robots can use your website. And what we're talking about isn't 5 years away. It's not super futuristic stuff. Agentic browsing already exists. And that's when the AI drives a real browser, or it reads the screen and it moves the cursor and completes tasks. And lots of big AI tools have already launched agents and operator modes. As ChatGPT launched their shopping option so that ChatGPT could buy stuff for you, then they rolled it back. ChatGPT also launched their Atlas browser. So sorry, I say ChatGPT, I mean OpenAI. OpenAI makes ChatGPT. They launched a browser called Atlas with sort of ChatGPT baked into the actual browser. So instead of using Chrome, you used Atlas, and ChatGPT was in the browser doing stuff. But they've rolled that back just recently as well. So they've kind of been the forerunners and tried to do stuff, and then they've kind of pulled it back because it's the public weren't quite ready for it, or there was more to work out around trust, around payments and things like that. But on the whole, people are pushing for it. The big companies are trying to roll it out, and lots of surveys I've seen suggest that the public think they're ready for it. The public think they want AI to be a personal assistant for them to help things. And lots of people are ready for AI to just sort of sort things out. So the question today isn't whether an AI agent will try to use your site, it's whether it will succeed when it does. And this was another screenshot I saw. This was from January, so this is 6 months ago. where McKinsey CEO said that of their 60,000 employees, 25,000 of them are AI agents. So acting on behalf of people, doing jobs that people would be doing. So just to be clear, what is an agent? And when I was sort of writing out what my idea of an agent is, I accidentally thought of Challenge Annika. If anyone's old enough to remember Challenge Annika. And I couldn't use a picture of her. I don't have rights for that. So this is ChatGPT's interpretation of what I described the back of Annika Rice looking like. So with Challenge Annika, she had to like go off and do a task, didn't she? So a chatbot answers. At the moment, generative AI, where you type it a question or you ask it to write something, it answers. But an agent does something. So it will take a goal like book me a plumber for Tuesday or reorder my usual, and it goes off and it completes what can be a multi-step task. And it's using a mix of its AI reasoning, so its ability to think, oh, Tuesday, or but not at that time, or this time would be better. It's using those sorts of things. Any APIs that you've got, that the services have got, and what it can read on the open web. So instead of a person clicking through your site, software is doing it, computers are doing it, robots are doing it on that. But when I say robot, I don't mean like a Johnny Five short circuit kind of robot, even those all the way through this, I'm using photos of robots like that. I mean AI as in like ChatGPT and Claude and things. So the software is doing it on that person's behalf to finish a job that they have handed off. So how does an AI agent actually see your website? There are 3 ways a machine can use your website. One, it can read the code. So we're going to look at all of these ways today. So one, it can read the code, the HTML, the structure, and the labels. And a lot of that is what June was about. A lot of that was about technical SEO and making things all very clear for robots so that when they got there, they understood what was being said and getting discovered from that way. But this today is more about how they can then actually use it. Another way that Google have told us is that it will look at the screen and it will literally screenshot the page and look at it the way a person would. So we've got some more to say about that in a minute. And the third way is that it can connect programmatically, and that's when the systems talk to each other. So via an API, or as is more the case with AI, an MCP, and we're going to talk about that a bit later on as well, as long as some other new protocols that are coming out. So modern agents do all of those: read the code, look at the screen, and connect programmatically. So from now on, when you're building a website or when you are designing your website, planning your website, updating your website, you're building it for 2 types of users. The one reading your code and the one looking at your page. And with the one reading your code might be using its MCP as well. And on top of that, you've got the fact that you've already got people will still be using it and this AI agent type of user. So this is a robot taking a photo of a screen, obviously, nice camera there. Google has talked about, they've put in their guidelines, how AI understands a page visually. They'll take a screenshot of the page and interpret the layout like a human would. So where there's a button, what does this look like? What's the main action over here? Which means that things matter that haven't mattered in SEO before. And I wrote about it recently. And when I send around the replay and the slides, you'll have a link there to a blog post I wrote recently, which is 5 things we're doing differently on websites now. And those things are like making sure that buttons really clearly look like buttons. Like it's not, yes, a user might be used so they can click on an image. And there is an element here that AI is very clever. It's kind of like my husband the other day referred to it as a really intelligent idiot, because sometimes it does still just do something really annoying. But it is clever, isn't it? On the whole, it's very, very clever. So if it's trying to think like a person, you could argue that, well, a person knows you can generally click on a picture. AI will know that too, and that is true. But you've just got to play it safe. You've just got to do all the things you would usually do on a website if you wanted it to be super, super clear to the user. So I always, and I hope this isn't offensive to her, I always think, or especially I used to 10, 15 years ago, she's not as bad now. I used to think, what would this be clear to my mum? Would my mum be able to use this website? And she might not know to click on a picture. It's like a standard, like clicking on the logo often takes you to the homepage, or I think should take you to the homepage. I don't rely on that. I don't rely that, oh, everyone knows clicking on the logo takes you to the homepage, because I don't think everyone does know that. So rather than just click on that picture to go somewhere, you would also want another button that says read more or the extended bit. So just look at it and think, if someone was using a website for the very first time, and it's like when you do look at a website through the eyes of someone, a kid or an older person. My grandma doesn't use the internet at all. So when you look at it through a completely blank canvas and you bring none of that background knowledge with you, is it clear what you need to do? So think about that. Is the font legible? You know, you picked a really nice font. We've changed our font on our body copy on our website recently because it looked lovely. We designed the site and John designed it and he did a lovely homepage and it was all really, really nice. And then the last sort of 6 months, I've been writing really long blog posts in detail about all this stuff I'm talking about. And I was like, oh, do you know, it's making my eyes go a little bit blurry when there's so much of it. It's great when it's a paragraph on the homepage and that size, but a slightly smaller body copy en masse just wasn't working for me. So we changed the font to be super clear. Maybe I'm getting old, maybe I need my eyes tested, but we've made it super clear. You also think about sliders. Oh, actually, I'm going to come back to that, so I'll save that for later. So but you can also read that blog post. So 5 things we're doing differently on websites now. So this one is why layout shift suddenly matters more. So you've probably heard of Google's cumulative layout shift. It's one of Google's core web vitals, and it's one of the things it checks. And what cumulative layout shift is when when a person comes to your website and things start to load and then it jumps. And the usual one is because ads are coming in. But it's not always just ads. So even if you don't have ads on your website, you've still got to be wary of this. Everything jumps because something loads in a bit later. And when that's annoying, it's annoying just like because you're reading something and it moves. But when it's super annoying, it's because you've just moved your mouse to click. And as you click, it jumps and you end up clicking on the wrong thing. And then it's this kind of sluggish website. So you're waiting for the wrong thing to load just so you can go back and then wait for it all to load again so you can click on the right thing. And that's super annoying. And AI would just maybe not realize quite what had happened and it would go click on the wrong thing and just stay on the wrong thing. But, well, in this case of cumulative layout shift, the problem is you don't know exactly when Google or Gemini or the AI is going to take its screenshot. So you need everything to load really speedily and really nicely on the page. You don't want it to take a screenshot just before something loads in and pushes everything down. And the robot is thinking, right, I'm going to click up here because that's where the button was. But then when it clicks there, actually there's something else there now because it took its screenshot before it all jumped. So that is why cumulative layout shift has been important to Google for a while because it's annoying for users. But now we've got this extra emphasis on it because we don't want things to jump around when it's taking a screenshot. This is what I was saying before, that buttons need to look like buttons. Your code and the look of your website have to agree. So everything needs to be really clear. That if in the code it's saying that it is a button and that you can click here to learn more, and the look of it needs to be clear as well, that it's a button, that it's something you can click on. So the heart maybe isn't super obvious. The 3 dots, the 3 dots is one of those where it's a well-known thing for people now. I would say that 3 dots means more. You click on that and you've got more options, but don't fully rely on it. Also have other ways for someone who doesn't know that, or for an agent too who doesn't know that, to see the actual links under there on the page. So this is what I was going to say a minute ago. Some of the things that we're changing on our website is we've got this bit where you click on web design and development or strategy and consultancy or architecture and hosting, and it changes the text on the right, and they actually cycle through themselves. So you can read about those are the 3 sort of pillars we categorize our work under. But if AI takes its screenshot at the point of it being on architecture and hosting, you wouldn't see the text under web design and development, and that's not any good. So we're moving away from things where important information comes up at different times. We want it all to be clear from the offset. We're also moving away, and this is a personal choice for a lot of design and branding, but I'm personally on our site and moving away from things that move themselves, because what I don't want is I don't want AI to take a blurry screenshot as it's halfway through transitioning and it just get this weird blur of half the web design text and half the architecture text. So I'm changing those 3 blocks to just be clear on the page and to say what we do. Then there's that example at the bottom, the 36 million people visit the websites we manage every year. that, because of those little arrows, you can see you click on one and it changes to say how many years we've been trading, and then clicks again for how many clients or how many websites or something. Anything that is, they don't, I can't remember now if they rotate themselves, but I was talking to a client yesterday who's got some brilliant, they help people get published, and they've got some brilliant front covers on one of their pages of the books that they've helped people publish, and you can click an arrow to scroll through them, and they don't move on their own. You have to scroll, fine, so there's not going to be a blur there. We're not worried about the blur. But I said, well, obviously the first 5 are the best ones, yeah? You want the best ones at the front. And they said, oh, well, no, actually, because we just put them on. As someone new gets published, we put them on. So that a really good one might be like in the 3rd lot of slides. I was like, oh, no, then make sure you lead with your very best ones, because AI in a screenshot, you want it to see the very best ones. And then if it wants to click, or someone wants to click, fine, they can go through. But in that first glance, all your important information, all your best information, and nothing that can be blurry if it's important. If it's just an image slideshow, maybe it's not the end of the world if it blurs, but nothing important blurry, as an agent could take a screenshot of it. We're also looking now to make sure we include actionable HTML. So when an agent reads the code, it needs the markup to say not just what it is, but what it does. And the term actionable HTML is something Google's doing in its own documentation. So a button labeled add to basket or book a discovery call tells it exactly what will happen if it acts. And then also behind the scenes in the actionable HTML, that is echoed as well. So kind of 2 thoughts there. I might change the slide before I hand it around. We've got the actionable HTML, and we're going to look more about that as well later. But it's just those words on the buttons being super clear. So get started is a little bit vague, depending on what context it's in. But book a demo, book a call, add to basket. I got ChatGPT to mock me up a picture really quickly the other day for a blog post on LinkedIn about a good AI agentic design and a bad one. And the good one had like add to basket, whereas the bad one was just sort of a plus sign. Plus sign, what we don't necessarily know what that means. It makes sense, you're plussing it, you're adding it to your basket, but it's not crystal clear. Keep it crystal clear. So whether an agent reads your screen or your code, it's asking the same thing a human asks, which is what can I do here and what happens if I do it? And your job is to make that answerable without guessing. In the picture, in the screenshot it takes, and in the code, with the 2 agreeing. So what can I do here and what happens if I do it? It needs to be really clear for a user and really clear for an agentic AI. So next, we're going to talk about the actions on your site and whether a machine can use them. So firstly, we're going to think about, and you can all have a think on your website, which actions actually matter, or on your client side, if you're here agency side. Every site has a handful of actions that are the big ticket ones, the really important ones. I don't know if my window, it is hot in here. You need to make sure an agent can do them. Otherwise, you could put so much work and money into all your discovery and all your continued SEO and getting people to your website. But if the people you bring to your website are agents and they can't use it, then there's no point in all that effort to actually get them there. So for a shop, you might decide that your important actions are search, filter, choose a variant, add to basket, and checkout. And for a service business, it might be book a call, request a quote, fill in the contact form, or download the thing. So find your 2 or 3 make or break actions, and these are the ones that you really want an agent to be able to complete. So for us on our 18A site, it's going to be, and we haven't implemented this yet. Tom was like, "How are you doing your talk on Thursday?" And we should do all that. You should be practicing what you preach. And I was like, "Yeah, been too busy arranging the call to actually do the changes, arranging this talk to actually do the changes." But we will do. And what we're going to aim them at is our contact form. But we're going to have a form on like every page rather than just all going to one particular contact form. So a button should be a button, and we're doing this for a website that we inherited today, actually. They've got a big membership site, but Dean is going through all the code and making sure that the buttons are clearly buttons. So this is a little bit technical if you don't do code yourself. But for example, this says div class, in the red box, sorry, div class BTN, right? That's it. We can read BTN means button, but it's just a class. It's just like a name. It's just referring to that div as BTN. And then unclick, add to cart, add to basket, fine. The alternative is instead of a div, it's a button with a type of button. And on click, add to cart, add to basket is text on it, and then you close the button. So what is actually happening there, the actual code for on click of add to cart is exactly the same. And the button on the front end would look the same to the user if you made sure you styled it so that it still did. We're not talking about anything having to look different in this regard. We were talking about it having to look clear for the screenshot. This is when robots are just looking at the code. We're talking about how you code it behind the scenes. And ideally, you do all of these things. You have it looking like a button, you have it coded well, and we'll talk about MCP later. But so this is looking at the code of your buttons, for example, and seeing, are they just in a div or are they actually in a button with a type of button? On the front end, they're identical to a human, but they are completely different to a machine. Reiterating again, to say what the action does, not click here. Tom has always hated click here, but forever, because of SEO. It was more about, like, rather than say, for a full review of our running shoes, click here, that was always wasted. You're wasting your anchor text. You're wasting, with Google, you wanted the link to be the words that were the important words that linked you to that review. So you would have said, for a review of our running shoes, or click here for a review of our running shoes. You want running shoes to be the link. So this is just an evolution of that. So click here would become download the pricing guide, or submit would be book your free call, or learn more would be see how Site Vitals works. So really have a look at your website and think, is there anything there that you're not really clearly labeling? It's a bit vague, and you could just tweak the wording of it, and it would probably be something you could do yourself to tweak the wording of it and make it a lot clearer. And the same fix also helps screen readers too. So screen readers is in what someone uses when they're blind, and it reads out the screen to them. If you do this, then it will help those as well, which is a running theme through this that we'll come back to. So a form an agent can fill in is the other thing, and we're going to be doing this a lot. I think anyone agency side here is going to be doing this a lot for the next 12 months. So on the left, a typical form is just an email, and then there's an input type of text, and then phone, an input type of text, fine. But they're just like text fields next to words, one for email, one for phone. The right way to do it, the ideal way, is to label them all and do all of that input ID, email, name, email, type email, autocomplete email, all that stuff. So it's being extra clear for an agent that this is the email field, this is a phone field. And it can be the difference if an agentic agent comes to if an agent comes to your site, this could be the difference between capturing the lead and losing it at the very last step. And a lot of this, if it's sounding familiar, is because it's accessibility work. So we've always said that we can go to AAA accessibility levels for people who need it. Most people don't, if they don't have like a legal requirement to. Councils have, when we do public sector stuff, there's requirements there, but lots of private companies don't have that absolute requirement. One of the, well, not one of the first websites, but I made a website. Who remembers Stressed Eric? Do you remember Stressed Eric? The cartoon? I went into Aardman and had to make the Stressed Eric website a long time ago, like 16 years ago. And they had very high accessibility guidelines then, and it was fine because we were hand coding our HTML. We were getting those little W3C badges that you used to get and put on the bottom of everything. And when you code things really properly, it's often very accessible anyway. So a lot of this stuff isn't going to be new to good developers who are writing things by hand, or they've got the tools that can do it well. This isn't going to be new stuff, but it's just bothering to do that stuff that perhaps you didn't need to do if you weren't really pushing accessibility. And things like ARIA labels, maybe they weren't such a big thing before. But anyway, almost everything in the code that makes your site usable by an AI agent is the same thing that makes it usable by someone with a screen reader. So semantic HTML, real buttons, labeled forms, descriptive links, and ARIA tags, little extra attributes. So from a marketing point of view, you're not sort of fighting for new budget for this. It's, if you had an accessibility budget, a lot of this will be already done. If you have been wondering about accessibility, now you've got the argument that, well, it's important for accessibility, but it's also really important for agentic AI. So you can sort of word it how you need to whoever will sign off the time to do it all. A really easy way to see where you stand is that Site Vitals, which is our tool, checks for lots of accessibility items in its SEO and AI visibility check. So it will flag the unlabeled buttons and the missing form labels and any structure problems. So when I send this around, you can give it a go on that link. I've got a QR code in a minute as well. So another thing to keep in mind is your semantic structure, and it's like a map that the agent navigates. So there's my robot lost looking at road signs. Semantic elements tell an agent which part of the page it's in and how to move around. So if your page is just boxes, it doesn't really know, but you can, in the code, I don't want to say it, I don't know if it's right, I haven't checked it, but I feel like it was HTML5 that brought all this stuff in. I feel like that's when you started getting this stuff, but don't quote me on that. But you label things as nav, you label it as the main area, you may label it as the header, you label it as an article, you label it as a button. We talked about buttons, rather than it all just be div, because a div is kind of like a container. Like rather than just be container, you would say, this is the header, this is the main area, this is the footer, this is an article in the main area. So all that kind of layout is just letting the robots know where they are. But this bit, the semantic structure bit, is a bit of a big job to retrofit. So that is something really to remember. Adding ARIA tags to stuff, not a big deal. Changing your buttons, not too much of a big deal and really important. The actual structure of it might be a big deal. So that's more something to remember when you're starting a fresh one. So looking a bit more in detail at e-commerce and all of this for e-commerce. If anyone here's got a shop, you've got to think about the agentic checkout and go and test each of these. On your shop, think of variant selection. So like size, color, is it hidden behind JavaScript, which an agent can't easily operate or can't really work with? Or is it, if it is, but you can also get to it from its own page somehow, that might help. But so think about, would an agent be able to, or ask your developer if an agent can select size and color if it was actually going to buy something. Is the add to basket definitely a button, not just a style div? Make sure an agent, your checkout flow can be used by an agent, and we'll talk more about a way you can test that, a way you can start to test that. Make sure you don't have stock and price that only appear after a script runs. So if your page loads and then it's sort of a few seconds later blinks and the stock comes up, if someone has taken a screenshot of that, they might have missed the stock. Or if they've paused the page, because Gemini yesterday, I gave it an article I'd written to read to sense check something, and it was lightning, but it was ridiculous. I felt like, oh, it must have made this up. When it just replied, yeah, that's great. I was like, no, there's no way it read it that quickly. It must have just been pretending to have read it. And then I read the rest of its notes, and it was saying, like, I particularly like that analogy. I like that bit. And I was like, that was fast. So if an agent is reading something that quickly, you need your stock and your pricing to be really clear. And you've just got to be aware of these things, because if an AI agent was buying on a customer's behalf and they weren't in place, the sale could fail, and you wouldn't know about it. You wouldn't realize why, because it worked for you. So think about it, or ask a developer to think about it from an agent's point of view. Meanwhile, if you're a service business, make sure you've got your labels on your forms, like we've talked about. Booking widgets that are embedded, those we'll talk about third parties in a minute. Book a call, make sure it's a button, or just make sure it's usable, and multi-step inquiry flows. So with a multi-step anything, I always try and design it to be built so that you're at least capturing the person's information on that first one, because you could build it so that people do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and then when they submit it, all the information is stored. Right? Or you can store it as you go. And I would always prefer, if it's something important, to store it as you go. So if someone just does the first information, just gives their name and email, and then by step 3 they get bored and stop, at least you can follow them up. At least you've got their name and email because you saved it. More than just, that's my phone, more than just ask it all in steps. Check if, well, you might know, if someone fills in half a form, do you still get that half an answer? If you don't get that half an answer, consider changing it so that you get each answer as they go in, rather than waiting until the end. Because if something trips an agent up later on, it will be gutting not to have gotten the first bit. The bit you don't control. So this is a bit sucky, and this is your third-party widgets, which are really popular nowadays. Booking tools, payment, review widgets, chat and calendars. Often your most important actions for your website are housed in someone else's code. They're controlled by someone else's code and they're embedded on your page. So ask the provider who makes that widget, but you can also test this for yourself, is the widget keyboard and screen reader accessible? Does its content work without running JavaScript? Because if you turn off JavaScript, does it still turn off JavaScript in your browser? Does it still work? And if it does still work, great. See, that might mean an agent can use it. If it doesn't, then what you're going to do instead? Is it embedded as an iframe that an agent can't get into? Because an iframe, it will appear on your website, but it's kind of a window into a different website. It's a bit harder to get onto. And do they put a captcha on the booking step? That's the I'm not a robot tick button. Could you potentially not have a captcha on that? Is that an option they offer you? So test it for yourself. And this is a really good thing you can do to test it for yourself. Try to complete the booking or the payment using only your keyboard. So use your arrow keys to tab around, or your tab key, and click enter when you want to submit a form or hit return. If you can't get through it, then an agent quite possibly can't either. So use your keyboard to move around your website. If you can navigate your whole website or fill in the form, the important bits of your website, if you can do your checkout on a keyboard, then that is great. If you can't, then that quite possibly means Agentic AI couldn't use it either. You can build your own website perfectly and still hit a wall because there's a third-party booking software that you don't control, and that's stopping you. So try and choose wisely going forward. Everyone will be sort of adapting to this, but just find out from them sooner rather than later. How are they adapting? Have they adapted already? Do they think Agentic AI can use the service that they've done for you? So the next step is WebMCP. And this is super cool, I think. Whereas we looked at, so WebMCP is, I've done, what slide have I done it on? I'm going to come back to that. I might wish I'd done these in a different order. WebMCP is kind of is something in a browser that when an agent visits your website, the browser will say, oh, hey, don't bother clicking or typing. Just send me this information and we can pop it straight into the website and it will all work. So it's the browser helping the website and the agent communicate because the website has got a certain code on it that the browser can recognize and say to the agent, hey, no, that's good. We've got WebMCP sorted out over here. So just pass it on to us. So when we looked at the form code earlier, we had the red box of what wasn't good for Agentic AI. We had the green box for what is. That green box has now moved to the left because it is perfectly fine for an agent. And that was adding the extra labels and inputs. But if we could make it even better, we'd WebMCP it, which is, I don't think it's quite used yet, but it is really like imminent. And there are WordPress plugins for it to get all ready for it. So if you email me, I can tell you, if you use Contact Form 7, drop me an email and I can send you a link to the MCP. Contact Form 7 is a plugin for WordPress forms, and I found that there is a plugin that does WebMCP on Contact Form 7 forms. Because WebMCP is just kind of like going the extra level to the box that was good previously. So you can just see the code there is just a little bit different. It's just got extra things in like tool description, tool params description. Yeah, it's just taking it a little bit further. And instead of the agent scraping the form and simulating typing, rather than an agent, a piece of software effectively having to pretend it's a person typing in your form, I see it more as like a big bucket that it can just like fall into. Just put, oh, great, this is easy for me. Just put that information in there, boom, contact form submitted. And if you are trying to get people to, if say, for our case, web development agency, say someone was saying, find me 3 web development agencies in the Bristol area and send my, tell them what's the best email address to send the full written brief to. Great, if we've got a big MCP thing there saying, hello, yeah, just come and dump all your information in here. Great, that's going to be easy for an agent. And things tend to do what's easy, don't they? Obviously, they love everything else about us on our website, but it would just be that extra kicker that would also make it super easy. There are so many protocols around for all of this stuff. So MCP was what we were talking about WebMCP. MCP is the bit that sort of came first, and it was started by Anthropic. Anthropic are who make Claude. Then you've got agent to agent, A2A. Then you've got a whole, the yellow ones, the green ones are about agents using your data and your website and your information. And all the yellow ones there are all people's ways, different ways. Big companies are trying to make it possible for you to do payments online. They're all about, some of them there, like the Google initiated ones, are about trust and about really verifying that that agent has a real person's permission to be using their credit card. So if you say to Claude or ChatGPT, yeah, you can use this card, how does the website know that it was definitely you and it's not like a stolen card that someone is then getting ChatGPT to use? And then there's other ones that are more like machine to machine payments. So if you've got, because that's the other thing about agents, we've talked about agents working on behalf of a person and looking up at a website to do something a person would be doing. But agentic is also agents talking to agents. So two different robots talking to each other. And so they might need to pay something. So you might have an agent turns up and says, oh, I want to use your API. And the agent of that service says, yeah, you can, but it's going to cost you like 50p. And they say, that's cool, here's the 50p in credits that we've agreed according to this protocol. And the other one goes, yeah, cool, okay, now I'll serve you the API stuff you wanted. And that all happens. And you would just get, like, I don't know, direct debit at the end of the month, either with how it would be, or a standing order, or you'd get an invoice or something around this sort of globally recognized credit kind of way. So this is all the stuff that's still trying to be worked out, because it's got to be secure. And this is part of the reason that I read ChatGPT's shopping thing didn't take off, was part of the reason, it was hella complicated. They were doing it with Stripe, I think, but it was just like super complicated to get it to actually work. To actually get ChatGPT to use your credit card to buy a pair of trainers, it was a bit of a step beyond what anyone could do at the time. Plus the trust issues and making sure that it was all secure. And also, I feel that maybe people weren't quite as ready for it as the big tech bros would like us to think. So I do think we need to be getting our websites ready for this. But when ChatGPT thought we were ready for this in December, I did a reel about ChatGPT's checkout before Black Friday. So when they were sort of talking about it in like October, November, thinking, yeah, it's going to be amazing. In March, they were like, no, actually, the world's not quite ready for it yet. But I'm trying to look to like the next 6-12 months and have us all ready for that sort of time. And yeah, it's going to, if they tried it previously, it'll be back soon. So a little bit more about MCP, because you might have heard of API. And an API is when you make certain ways on your website for your information to be shared out and given to other services for other services to use it. Or you make ways for people to feed information into you. And your API, the simplest way to put this is that your API was very customized and tailored to you. If you've got an API, it was built for your service. Or if you're integrating with MailChimp's API, for example, your developer has to read the MailChimp docs and it says, oh, okay, if I want to send in an email address to add it to the list because I've collected it from my website, that's the webhook I need, or that's the that's the endpoint I need. That's the API endpoint for updating that email address when they change it. That's the endpoint for removing it when they delete it. Fine. MailChimp calls it this. This is its unique name for this endpoint. Fine. An MCP is more standardized. It's less of this is how MailChimp wants it, and it's more MailChimp does the work on its side to be compatible with the MCP kind of framework. And the bot, the agent can come along and be like, oh, cool, they've got MCP. So I know that I'll just do this, I'll do this, I'll be able to access this here and here. And that agent then makes more decisions for itself. It's kind of a looser way of organizing the information. It's not quite as horribly rigid as an API, so that the agent can go in, see what information is available and make the decisions it needs to do on the fly about, right, okay, I do need to add an email address and I need to update that one and I need to delete that one. But it's not looking for MailChimp's own really specific endpoints. It knows this whole framework. It knows the rules of MCP. MCP, I'm pretty sure, was designed by Anthropic. I think I just said that on the last bit. So it's kind of this global initiative so that all the websites have to adhere to it, rather than the agents have to know every single API for every single thing, because that wasn't really going to work, was it? Anthropic weren't going to make Claude understand your own API if you were tiny. They'd have done it for the big boys. They wouldn't have done it for everyone. So they'll get everyone to work to this MCP plan so that the agents can use it all. So MCP is just something you're going to hear more going forwards. If you've heard API a lot, you're going to hear MCP a lot. And I've got a more detailed blog post on that there, and I'll send you to you later. So these are 4 questions to take to your developer or to your platform if you're using third-party stuff. Do our APIs have any agentic compatibility, and could they connect to something like MCP? So you're introducing, could MCP be used? Could you evolve your offering to have an MCP? Is our underlying data structured and accurate enough for an agent to rely on? Is all your semantic stuff good there? And are the third-party web apps and platforms we depend upon becoming agent ready? And if not, what is their roadmap? When might they be ready? And then you need to decide, like, do you need to look at something else in the meantime? Do you need to just put in some little stopgaps there? And if we sell things, are our feeds set up for the agentic shopping channels that are emerging? So you need to make sure that any feeds, any data feeds of all your products have all the information that they need to be put in order to the different shopping channels that the different shopping platforms would be using. A site that looks finished to a human can still be a locked door to an agent, and you won't see it because it still works perfectly well for you. So that's why it's important to test those things. The capture paradox, and this is why I've got my little sad robot, because the whole web is covered in prove you're not a robot, and captures and bot blockers and rate limits and tick boxes, and they're all built for good reason because they were built to keep malicious bots out. But now, if you count AI as a good bot, we've got good bots and we've got bad bots. And your customer asking their AI to buy the thing or book the call is a good bot. That's someone that you want. And it's hard to know who to let do stuff. And nobody's fully solved it yet. So there's talk about verified agents. That's my Robert the robot with his badge saying he's a verified agent. Cloudflare, as you might expect, are doing a lot of work in this area. But no one's quite got a complete solution for it yet, because you don't want to just let all the bad robots do everything. You don't want to just lift everything. So it's just something that to start thinking about, and that, don't worry, the web is trying to think about. They're trying to think about how to let AI tick that I'm not a robot box, basically. But what you can do about it now is that you can have, by capture, I mean where you're asked to enter the characters or click on every picture that shows a traffic light or check that you're not a robot. One of those little things that you put on a form that is a spam deterrent is how you might have thought about it as. And it's a spam deterrent because it would be robots that were coming to fill in the form with spam. So have a look at all the forms on your website and which ones have got captures on it. If you've got a capture on a login or an admin page, then yep, fair enough. You need to keep that super secure. But if you've got a capture on a page that is your key way for a potential client to ask you to start a conversation to potentially hire you, weigh it up. Like, what's the worst that could happen? If that form has got good security on it, so that no one could upload anything malicious, it would just be that you got some annoying spam. How good are your spam blockers on your email end? Would it be that problematic if you got some more spam? Which is more important, turning your capture off and getting some spam through, or potentially blocking out the good robots? And you can just test it for a little while. You could just turn it off once you check that the form is actually, like, the capture isn't doing any more than just stopping some spam emails coming through, and that everyone in your company is sort of trained to understand what a real email is, what phishing looks like, all that sort of stuff. In our company, actually, the emails from the contact form only come through to Tom or I, and so we know what a phishing email looks like. We know what to check if anything seems dodgy. Then you can weigh up, should we remove the capture, put up with a bit more extra spam, but we are potentially opening ourselves up to getting more inquiries through. We have got coming soon, we're going to have capture-free critical form testing coming to Site Vitals, so that if your form stops working, because sometimes forms stop working for mail server reasons or a plugin upgrade or all these different reasons, your form can just stop sending. And unless you test your form regularly, you don't know about it. And this is something that people have been asking for, is form testing on Site Vitals, because Site Vitals is our platform that constantly monitors your website, and flags up when something's gone wrong with it, or when performance has dropped, or when security has dropped, or when a third-party thing drops, or it's got all the AI visibility checks on it. And I've had clients that have updated their title tag by accident or removed their H1 recently by accident, and Site Vitals has flagged it so we can jump back in and put it back. And that's all great. But we can't test forms because we would be a robot. We would be a robot coming and testing the form. And robots aren't allowed. And the point of Site Vitals is that whilst it does have a server level and that requires a developer, like if you want to run checks on your server, the bulk of it is so like anyone can use it. You just put in your URL, you just paste your URL into a box and you're done. So we don't want to get into asking you to white label the IP address in Cloudflare and stuff so that it lets us through your I'm not a robot box, because that's all just too complicated. But if people do start taking off captures from the really important forms, we could then be a robot that comes and tests it. So if that's something that you would be interested in, form testing on forms that don't have captures, then let me know and I will keep you abreast of when that's coming, or just check out sitevitals.co.uk, because if we've got it, it will be all over there. So what this means and where the opportunity is. So what changes for shops? So if you, the shop that wins the agentic shift isn't necessarily going to be the prettiest. It's the one that an agent can reliably operate from search in Google or from ChatGPT, from its discovery to checkout. And that's a competitive advantage at the moment. Going forward, that will definitely be a competitive advantage. I really think that is where it will be handy, to be honest, like Shopify, to be honest, because they'll be like all over that. And they were the ones that did the deal with ChatGPT in the first place to run the shop, or to let ChatGPT buy stuff straight away. As for service businesses, when AI starts shortlisting or contacting service providers on people's behalf, you've got to be thinking about, can an agent complete our inquiry flow? And it's a real lead generation question. It's not just technical. It's really like, this is a big thing for new business. The business whose form an agent can fill in gets the inquiry, and the form the agent can't fill in doesn't get the inquiry, and they never know that they were so close to getting the inquiry. And for agencies in the room, clients can't ask AI to fix what they don't know is broken. So if they're not aware of all this stuff that we've been talking about today, then just you knowing to test for it and how to fix it is exactly what you can really sell at the moment, what you can really offer. So it's a genuinely new service line of your agent readiness audit. So meanwhile, if you look at Site Vitals and the AI agent accessibility, it will be watched over time. So that's the thing with Site Vitals, is it's monitoring you all the time. If you want to scan that QR code, you can put in your URL, and then you will get an AI visibility audit. But also it's looking at all the things we've been talking about ARIA labels and tags, and making sure that everything is super clear for agents. And then because that's not all like a one-time thing to do, it can drift, it can change, people can add things and stuff can accidentally get forgotten. Site Vitals will alert you when something quietly breaks, when it sort of stops working. You can go there, you can use it just for free to get uptime and events timeline. So anything that's blipped on your site at any time, because it's really handy sometimes to be able to look back and say, that happened and that happened. It's because that happened on Wednesday, and that's what triggered the other two things. So so we just fixed Wednesday. We don't chase our tail trying to fix Thursday and Friday. It's got the accessibility report all wrapped up in the AI stuff. And it's got a WordPress plugin, so anything that happens with your plugin upgrades all gets put onto your one single timeline. And you don't need a credit card to get started, and it takes like a minute to set it up. So what is interesting is kind of this idea of like a funnel, like flipping. And in the old funnel, a human moves through every stage where they're aware and they're interested, and then they're comparing, and then they're buying. And in the agentic funnel, the agent does the heavy lifting across most of those stages. And the human might only step in sort of quite near the end to validate the choice the agent has made, or to say, no, that's wrong, go back and do some more research. This is what we need to take from it. So from your website's point of view, you're no longer necessarily persuading a human through every step. You're giving an agent rich, verifiable information to confidently put you forward as the answer. And I think that's quite different from what we're hearing. I'm like, anyone who watches any reels about social media, everyone on social media is telling you it's all about trust, it's all about humanness, it's all about building a connection. It's all quite emotive. It's all hook driven. It's all lots and lots of emotion is what's getting you to stand out. But arguably, if it's an agent looking at your website, they just want to know cold hard facts and what it does. And yes, it ticks all the boxes. And yes, it's got good reviews. And yes, this person should come back and buy these shoes. But then when the person comes in to verify, that's when they need all the hooks and all the human and all the credential stuff. So it's an interesting balance. You don't need 2 websites. I've written about that before as well. I can send you the link to that if you want to read it. It's on my LinkedIn. You don't need 2 websites, but just think about in your messaging. So this is going up several layers. This isn't technical at all. In your messaging, you want to really make sure that you are appealing to everyone. You're saying the right things that make a human believe in why your product is good or why it would be a pleasurable experience to work with you and buy from you. And you need for an agent to corroborate everything that you're saying across the web and that everything is factual and everything is correct. So being found by AI gets you considered, and being usable by AI is increasingly going to get you chosen and actually used. So 5 things to test this week. And this is all stuff you can literally go and do for free and actually really find out about your own website. Run a Site Vitals AI visibility report. It's in the you scan that, put in your URL card, scan that, put your URL, and it will run the reports, and it will tell you, and it will surface unlabeled buttons and missing form labels and structure gaps and things like that. Fine. Turn off JavaScript and see what survives. And if your key actions vanish, then the chances of AI being able to use that would be greatly decreased. Tab through your site with only a keyboard. If you can't reach and trigger your make or break actions, then an agent might not be able to either. So give it a test on your keyboard. View source. So right click on your website on your mouse and click view source and search for div class equals button. You can type it, you can do Control F so that you get a search box up, and then you type in what's there, div class equals button, like a pointy arrow, div space class equals button, and see if it finds it. If your buttons are divs, there's your first chance. Or check it on Site Vitals as per the link above, because I think that will surface that as well. And find out where your captures sit, and then make the strategic decisions about whether you're willing to turn off your captures so that you get more spam after a safety check, that you can't get anything nastier than a bit of spam message and some offers you do not want, so that agentic AI could actually use it and submit the form. So that brings us up to there. We've done choosing the same brands, technical SEO, is your website usable by AI? And then in September, I'll be back with building and selling websites in 2027, kind of a, like I said at the beginning, just an overview of everything we need to think about as we go into building new websites and selling websites, and what people need to be aware of, and how websites are going to be built and sold. Like, will we still be using WordPress? Is everyone going to be using Wix? It might be better. I think it is better than it used to be. We've done a study on all those ones, but it's just Wix just makes you feel a bit funny, doesn't it? But I think it was. So yeah, that is that. That's the building and selling websites in 2027. The date is to be confirmed. Thank you very much for joining me. I really hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions, please do leave a comment here. What are we doing on time? Or 1 minute, but yeah, go ahead with any questions. Grab a free Site Vitals account. And if you'd like to leave a review, please do. It'd be very much appreciated. And you can scan that QR code there in order to see a review, in order to leave a Google review. Can't get my words out. The heat is still getting to me. So yeah, scan the QR code to leave a Google review. That'd be very much appreciated. And if anyone has got any comments, we've got something in the comment box there. Oh, cool. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, loads. Thanks. Oh, good. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Great. As usual.
Thank
you very much.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Bye. I'm just